Well, back out in the garage again. It is the first day of the new year 2021. So I thought it'd be a great day to get out in the garage again. I figured it'd be a good way to kick off the new year. So I'm back out and just kind of plugging away on a few things. I'm trying to remember where I left off in the last video. I think the last I had the K-member and everything pulled out, all the fronts. But I got all the front spindle assembly, the front struts, the front coil springs, and the K-member just laying there. I actually did end up selling the rear end, the 8.8, and then I had just the tailpipes with the mufflers cut out, but the tailpipes, the catback tailpipes with the tail and the tips and everything. Someone ended up picking up that yesterday and the rear end. I was debating selling it or not, and the wife kind of convinced me into selling it. So hopefully I don't regret that down the road. That was the one thing I was debating keeping in case I ever had another Fox body project of some sort. So I got the rear end sold. I actually got the 4-lug ponies sold. A guy came and picked those up this morning. I ended up pulling the inner fender liner out here, and I'll probably go around at some point once I get kind of things out of the way and kind of go over like what I'm looking at for rust and everything under here. I don't know, it's kind of one of them things where you start digging into it and it always seems like it's worse than what you'd expected or what you thought, but then once you start looking at it, then they start thinking it's not quite so bad. But I got all the fender liners out, up on the shelf, out of the way. I did end up pulling the radiator out and with the fan shroud and put the overflow tank back on it. I think I'm going to try selling that too, put it on Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist. And I did pull out, not the best with the technical terms for all the HVAC and AC, the HVAC. But I pulled out the evaporator core, I believe is what you call that, up ahead of the radiator, and got that pulled out of the way, and all the AC lines are out of the way now. And I'm working on getting all the old brake lines out and master cylinder. I had cut the heater hoses just ahead of the heater core here, so I went to pull those off, and I think I ended up tweaking. I think this is the outlet there. Ended up tweaking that, trying to get the hose off of it and that clamp. And then you can see here it even split this one. So I think it's a good thing. I was planning on replacing that heater core anyway. I'm guessing it's probably the original one to the car. So it's got 128,000 miles on it, and it's a 1991 model car. So yeah, so it's 2021 now. This is a 91 car, so happy birthday Mustang. It's 30 years old now. I think I had looked up the build date for this thing, and I think it was built in April or May. I can't remember now. I'll have to look it back up again. But so I guess it's not technically 30 years old yet, but if you go by model year, it's 30 years old. So that's kind of fun, making me feel a little old. I remember when these cars were brand new. Hey guys, it's later in the evening on January 1st, 2021. I've been out here, kind of made a mess out of myself, been crawling around underneath and standing up where the engine should be, and working on just getting stuff out of the car. I got a bunch of wires loose. I ended up taking the windshield washer reservoir out, just disconnecting a bunch of wires to get them out of the way, and taking, I don't know if that was a proportioning valve that was here before or just a junction box or whatever for the brakes. Got all that out. Went to take the master cylinder off of the brake booster and got the bolts off, and got one side of the master cylinder loose from one bolt, but it wasn't coming loose from the other side. So then I thought, well, maybe I'll try getting the master cylinder out from the inside in the brake booster. Well, there's 4 bolts up underneath the dash in that cave there. Well, you can see a little light shining through where the booster used to be. The bottom 2 bolts were a little bit easy to get to with kind of a U-joint in with a socket. I could kind of get to the upper one on the closer to the left side of the car, That upper one there, you could kind of get a wrench on and do it about 1/8 of a turn at a time, kind of standing, laying on the floor inside the car, kind of standing on your head, so to speak, and got that out of there. Like I said, about 1/8 of a turn at a time. Then the one that was on the right side, that one was a little tricky. I was able to get a deep socket with the U-joint, and it's almost at a 90 with an extension there. But somehow I was able to at least turn it most of the way, and then once I got it backed off about halfway, I couldn't turn it anymore, so I ended up getting a Wriggler, just a shallow socket. Got that on there, and then I actually spun it off somewhat easily. But yeah, once I got that off, and then undid the clevis for the brake and popped the whole brake booster right out. So I got it here on the bench now. And then the line that was here that went to the left front wheel, I couldn't get that loose with the wrench, so I ended up just kind of sticking it in the vise and turning the whole master cylinder and brake booster once it was sitting in the vise there, and getting that line off. Now I at least have the brake booster out, and then that junction block. Next I'm going to work on getting the rest of these brake lines out. But just thought I'd give you an update on where I was at with this right now, and probably be a few days before I get out here again and hopefully make a little more progress. So I'm thinking I'll get all these brake lines off and kind of do a little cleaning on the car to see where some of the rustier stuff is at, and then go from there. I think that at that point I'll start working on cleaning things up, getting some parts ordered. I know from what I've heard, Foxcast, I thought he had an issue with getting a tubular K-member for his car, but I think that was about a year or so ago now. But I'm kind of wondering with all this COVID stuff how much of a delay there is going to be getting parts. So I should get a K-member ordered, a coilover kit for the rear ordered. I have, including the springs for the back, I have some Steeda caster camber plates for the front. I have a coilover kit already, but no springs. So I'll have to get that ordered. So I'll probably be making a call to Maximum Motorsports and see how it is dealing with them. I've heard they have great customer service, so I'm kind of looking forward to these next few steps of kind of getting everything into the car. Well, first off, getting things cleaned up, and I'm really wondering what I should do about the back end. I know I'll show you once we start climbing around underneath what rust and everything there is underneath, but I'm thinking I'll at least get things cleaned up to like the mid section of the car up here. I don't know about even, well, up past where the control arms mount into the underside here. Another thing I'm really debating about, like I mentioned before, I do have Maximum Motorsports subframe connectors kind of buried in this mess that's back over here. But I'm really debating doing that Detroit Speed through the floor subframe connectors. So I'm thinking I'm going to go that way. I'll probably end up selling my Maximum Motorsports ones that I have here and going that route. So I think that'll be the next thing. And like, since I want to get the underside of the car cleaned up and painted and everything, I'm thinking I'll just do those subframe connectors right away so I can get the underside of the car painted up. Need to get a new fuel tank ordered. Probably have to get a higher flow. All I have is the stock fuel pump sitting there yet that came out of the rusty tank that I dropped out of the car. Get a fuel tank ordered, get a higher flow fuel pump ordered, and figure out what I need to do for fuel lines. Probably when I start getting stuff put in here, I'll have to talk to some friends that do body work for a living and see what I need to do to have a good durable coating underneath the car, so I'm not doing things 2 or 3 times and having to knock sand off or grind off or wire wheel off a bunch of paint that's not going to hold up to the test of time. So I'd rather do things right the first time and do it once instead of repeating steps. Back out in the garage again. It's January 7th now, and I'll just give you a quick update of where I'm at now. The last time I had the brake booster and everything pulled out, I came back out here tonight, and as you can see, that firewall's looking pretty clear ahead of where that, above where that pinch weld is. So I got those brake lines out that went across for the front brake on the right side, and then the brake line went across that went to the rear brake. You can still see the end of the brake line for the rear hanging out there. Debating how I want to do things, if I want to start and completely remove that brake line and work on cleaning up the car, or how I want to attack that with getting everything new underneath the rear end of the car. So I'm putting a little thought into that before I start tearing off the rest of that brake line. But I did get back out here again and got some of the hangers and everything off from underneath the car. So I thought I'd just talk about that a little bit, maybe give some of you guys a little bit of hope if you're working on a car that's unfortunately a northern car like mine. I still don't think it spent a lot of winters on the road, but I think it did spend some. There's some rust underneath the rear end of this car. A lot of it luckily seems like surface rust up to this point. So I'll just kind of show you. So I ended up pulling, this is the rear pinion bump stop, the exhaust hangers, and you can see this looks pretty rough here. That's the hanger for the fuel filter. So you can see it's pretty crusty, but luckily all the bolts came out pretty easily. I'm really glad I have got this nice 20 volt little impact driver. So that came in really handy. That thing's been kind of a godsend it's gotten some pretty stubborn bolts off up to this point. I wasn't expecting that for how little of a tool it looks like. It doesn't look that heavy duty, but it's done pretty good. But I did have one exhaust hanger bolt that was kind of stubborn, but I got it off of there. Eventually, I think one of my next uploads I will do some cleaning up, but I just want to show you guys. So those of you that have northern cars, this floor was pretty clean before I started tonight, so you can kind of see the rust that's flaked off and onto the floor. It's starting to clean up pretty good under there. One of these next uploads, like I said, I'm going to get back under here, really show you inch by inch what the bottom of this car looks like. So I thought I'd try to get some of that where it's just kind of that surface rust or whatever that's kind of flaking off, kind of get that out of the way and show you what we're working with. But you can kind of see it now. I did knock some of it out. When I first noticed what it looked like there above where the axle was, it kind of concerned me a little bit, but now that I start digging into it a little bit more, I'm starting to feel a little bit better about it. In general, overall, I'm feeling pretty good about this. Debating how I'm going to attack this. Ooh, I didn't realize those quad shock hangers could probably come off too, so maybe I'll get those off and see how everything looks there. I think that might come off. I'm wondering if that's where that Cobra rear end will bolt right up. Got these nice little hangers where that rear subframe comes up for that Cobra IRS. Yeah, it doesn't really look like those bolts line up perfectly from what it looked like back there. But I guess we'll find out. So maybe we'll start tearing into that. Like I said, I'm debating how much I want to clean that stuff up, or if I want to get all this stuff mounted and see how everything runs under there and get it all bolted up first before I start cleaning things up. So I got some thoughts going around about what I really want to do. I think I'll take that steering shaft off that's kind of hanging down right there and get that out of the way tonight yet too. So like I said, I'm just kind of out here playing around, just getting some stuff out of the way, getting stuff off of the bottom of the car so I can start getting things cleaned up and see what I'm dealing with here. I did get the quad shock mounts pulled off. And like I said, I was talking about a little bit before, got this nice little 20 volt DeWalt impact wrench, and it seems pretty light or it looks kind of light duty, but man, I'm glad I have it. It got these bolts out pretty nice. So you can see here I got the quad shock mounts off, and it looks pretty good under there at least. Yeah, I got that off of both sides. I think that's about all I'm gonna do for tonight. And again, I'll just show my little rust pile there. And I got the quad shock mount off of the other side. You can see all the parts laying there. So just gonna go around, do some labeling of parts, putting some parts away, and gonna kind of go from there and kind of call it a night, and kind of sit back and admire my car and go in the house for the evening. Oh, yep, I'm gonna get that out of there too. All right, one more little blurb for tonight. So I got the bolt out to try to get the steering shaft out, but little did I know, I'm guessing it should slide out of there, but I don't know if it's pinched down right here or if it's rusted enough, but went to pull it out. And it wants to pull the whole end of the steering shaft out with it. So I may have to rethink this a little bit or do a little research and see what I need to do just to get that steering shaft out of the end of it. Because I do want to put, I think Maximum Motorsports has a different shaft here to replace this rag joint. So I'll want to do that. So I'll put a little more thought or research into it and see what I can do to get that out of there.